I'm coming, Phil, I'm coming.
Yeah, we can still go, we can still go.
I'm coming. Get them.
Running up.
They don't have flash.
EQ soon.
I'm last hitting. I'm just gonna last hit. You guys got it?
Got one.
Good job.
Nice.
That's
Get
it,
this guy.
son! That's it!
Okay, that's good.
Welcome back, everyone, to Week 2 of the North American LCS Summer Split. And before we get into our next game between Team Coast and Dignitas, I'd like to welcome back Vulcan's Bloodwater to the desk. Vulcan in general, and Bloodwater, of course, specifically, congrats on that win. You guys seem to have Curse really figured out. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do agree with that, and thank you.
So what exactly makes you guys so successful against this team?
Honestly, we have majorly improved on our level 1s, and that gives us a really good lead in our game. So as long as we do that right, we're in it to win it.
Would you mind sharing your theory behind level 1s, how you build them, what you look for?
Not really. We just look at what other teams like leave exposed, I guess, and we just take advantage of it.
Okay.
So just about Curse specifically, since you guys do have them figured out, what about them allows you guys to beat them, like aside from level 1s? If you could like analyze Curse for us.
I'm not sure, honestly. I just think our playstyle just outscales them into the late game, and as long as we survive early game against them, I think we're just fine.
And what do you think allowed you to survive the early game in this game in particular?
Oh, definitely the level 1 and our picks and the way we played throughout the whole game. And played really safe as well.
Yeah, I noticed you guys played really, really safe overall. You had control for a while. You were ahead since probably about 10 minutes into that game, and you let it take a good long time. You won it finally at 35 minutes, but you very much took your time in making advances in that game. Why was that?
We wanted to play it safe so we can get better at the game, of course. Make sure we made no mistakes. Capitalize on every buffs that they have, Dragons, Barons, and take out their vision and just use it to our advantage, and that worked out fine.
So even in a match itself, you're using it as a learning experience to practice doing everything right.
Yes, definitely. We're using it as a learning experience.
Wow.
And with this pretty good start that you guys have now had to the LCS, you're 4-2, so it's kind of just a continuation of your ending for last year. Where do you see it going from here, and what is different this season than it was last season when you joined Vulcan?
I can't really predict how we're going to do in the future. I hope we're going to do well. I'm really hoping. It is what it is right now, and in the past, comparing it to right now, for last split, I think we're definitely doing better, a lot better than we were doing last split.
What would you really contribute for that success? What made you guys so much better this time around?
Definitely just our play style. We kind of had to change it a little bit, and we improved on a lot of major mistakes that we had in the past, and right now most of that is gone, so that's really good.
Could you share with us some of those adaptations?
Late game and the communication in the game as well. Call making plays and just level 1s, I guess.
General answers is the name
of
it.
Pretty general.
Trying to stay so particular. And is that actually kind of how Vulcan plays? Are you guys very meticulous about the way you're planning the game? Or saying, okay, if we get to late game, we're there? Or are there more specific things you guys are doing that you're just keeping on the down low?
Definitely just aiming for our main goal late game.
All right.
So late game focused team. So then talk to me about what you do then. Like if you're in Curse's shoes, go back into the game and you're in Curse's shoes where you seem like a very early game focused team, right? Curse's line, a very early game focused, a lot of diving, and you get behind early. What do you do to turn those kinds of games around?
If I were to be in Curse's shoes, I would have probably tried to make plays, pink ward a lot, maybe get on the early oracles and try to make plays and catch people that are out of position. That's the only chance. That's the only thing they could have done, honestly.
So from the very beginning of the game, then do you think you had them just figured out because the champs like finishes and you're like, oh, we've got Tristana, we've got all this great late game, just don't screw up, we're good?
Pretty much. That's how it works with Vulcan.
Oh, some really confident play.
Yeah, moving on to the rest of the league, actually, were you able to catch any of the Cloud9 versus COG game earlier?
I came in when it was about 35 minutes in, and it was pretty interesting. It went to late game, of course, and that did not surprise me at all.
What were some of the things that you sort of picked up from that game? Either things you learned about the other teams or things that surprised you or anything like that?
One thing I noticed was the Janna pick against Kennen just to counter it with the ults, and that was about it. Double Lift really outscaled Ezreal, sneaky, and that's pretty much why C9 lost the game, I feel.
So let's actually go back and talk about the league some more then for you guys, because you're off to a great start here, right? Again, top 3 last split. You're top 2 right now, tied for 2nd place. How far is this going? Will you overtake first? Are you going to just be a podium finisher? Where's Vulcan going from here?
Definitely Vulcan's aiming to be first, top 1, and we're going to do our best to achieve that in our future.
Is it too early to start thinking about Worlds?
I hope not. We've been thinking about it, and
Okay.
we have our hopes up.
What are the things that might block you to get there?
Well, definitely not making it to top 2 in this split. That's all we need right now. That's our goal.
So then when you start facing international competition, have you already started scouting opponents? Are there regions or teams you're worried about?
Not yet. We do watch international games, but right now we're just focusing on LCS.
Now, do you believe at all in the kind of Cloud9 moniker that they had last week where they're saying, hey, we just watched the Korean All-Star team and try to mimic what they were doing because they think they're playing the game better? Or do you have a different mindset than they do?
I think the Koreans, they're really good at the game. They have most of it figured out, and they're going to keep on progressing with it. And what Cloud9 is saying is most of it's right. Yeah, I would agree with it.
So you agree that the Asian scene has a leg up on the Western scene?
Yeah, I think so.
What will it take for you guys and the rest of the Western sort of hemisphere of League of Legends? What will it take for you guys to get up there and grab a first place in the World Championship?
Do what they're doing better, or just come up with our own strategies and outclass them.
All right, Bloodwater, thank you very,
Awesome
very
stuff.
much. Congratulations on your victory, and of course, we'll see you tomorrow and in the coming weeks as well. And hey, hope to see you in the World Championships as well.
Thank you.
Guys, it is almost time for our last match of the day between Team Coast and Dignitas. And for Don't Mash Me and his crew, they'll be trying to stack their 3rd win in a row against a struggling Dignitas squad that's still trying to pick up the crumbs from their spring split collapse.
They were doing so well week 1 to 8 last season. And once Crumbs had to do a little trip, whatever he had to do week 9, after that, they just seemed out of place.
We played them last week, and we had a close game, you can say, in which it came down to sort of a base race.
And Coast are going to make a beeline straight for the Dignitas base. This could be the throw of a lifetime.
We threw at Baron, we came back, and then we threw in a base race. So it's like, okay, we made some bad decisions.
It was so close, but they just couldn't finish it. I'm sure they're going to prepare really hard for next week.
They definitely want to win, especially when you beat a team. Next time, you always want to like get a revenge match.
I guess we're going to just go in with pretty much maybe a little different strategy, but they're going to come back with a vengeance, and we'll just have to be prepared.
And we'll see just how much vengeance Scar and crew will be getting in our 4th match of the day, Team Coast versus Dignitas. Now, for Coast, a win today would make it 3 in a row, plus a playoff victory against Dignitas.
And Team Coast, much like the last game between Curse and Vulcan, Team Coast has had Dig's number. But last week's match was the closest of all the games that they've played against each other, ending with some incredible throws and a race to the base.
Any of the respawns, only Daydreaming up right now. Flashes in for the silence, gets knocked up for the enemy team, and it's now the exposed Nexus at this point. Crumbs, so low on health. Here comes Crow.
Let's go. Can we end?
Yes, no.
Scar and Patoya are live, and here comes the counterattack.
This could be the throw of a lifetime.
Can Coast do it? Patoy CCing everyone, and here comes Kiwi Kid. AD carry falls down. They go for the Nexus. They get it. Coast turns it around and grabs the win.
One of the closest games that we've seen in a long time.
And after Dignitas' epic game of throws, they'll find themselves at 2 and 3 to start the summer split.
And that was another example of Dignitas' struggle to finish out games. They haven't been able to win the close matches all season long across both splits. During the middle of the spring split, Dignitas was getting their wins in blowouts. But when the games got closer during the end of the split and the playoffs for them, Dignitas started struggling. And Dignitas wasn't really able to fix this problem during the break because this manifested itself again last week. They either won by a landslide like they did against Team Solo Mid, or they couldn't close out the late game as they had in that loss against Coast.
And when Dignitas has struggled to lock down those close games, Team Coast has continued to pick up their game. They've lived up to that 2nd place playoff run.
Yeah, Team Coast not only beat Dig in week 1, they also beat CLG and Vulcan. And then their only 2 losses were against Team Solo Mid and the #1 seed in the LCS right now, Cloud9. In particular, Shifter has really stepped up in the mid lane for this team. His solo lane play throughout the entire first week, considering he's sort of like a new addition for them here in the 2nd split, was very impressive.
So a lot of impressive players here on both lineups. So let's check out who's starting up here on the blue and red side. On blue, it is Team Coast. Zion Spartan in the top lane, Nintendo in the jungle. Shifter, just talked about him in that mid lane. Don't Mash Me and AD carry, and Daydreaming on support.
And in the red corner, it is, of course, Dignitas, with Kiwi Kid in the top lane, Crumbs in the jungle, Scar in the mid lane. I'm a Cutie Pie on AD carry, and, of course, Patoy on support.
So guys, before we get into Champion Select, I want to see who you think is going to win this match. According to LOLesports.com, 55% of you guys think that Dignitas, surprising a lot of people, is going to come out on top.
And this is swinging a long ways from the playoff vote we had between Dignitas. And when they were at Good Game University, I believe that was an 80 or an 85% Dignitas side. OEV times have changed right now because these teams are back in action against each other. It's been Coast having Dignitas' number, but Dignitas has been a team who's been able to bounce back from a lot of adversity, specifically even just the beginning of the spring split, because they had a very rough first week, which is what a lot of people forget about. Then they went on a 10-game winning streak and got first place in the LCS for a short time.
Sure, they went 0-2 to 10-2. I mean, that takes a lot of skill.
And then this time, they're at 2-3, which is a disappointment to most Dignitas fans, and people are like, man, come on, Dignitas, bring it together. But maybe they will. Maybe week 2 is the only transition they need.
That's just what happens for them. They just need 1 week to get in the saddle and say, yeah, we know how this goes. Let's keep it up. And, of course, the entire LCS story, I think, has been one, really in all the regions, I think, of teams starting out a little shaky, some early leaders, and then the other teams just flipping it up and saying, no, you know, GGU from last split, Vulcan from last split, even Dignitas, you know, counting week 1. And they say, no, we're actually going to do really, really well. And then now you're here where suddenly the heavy favorites are falling down and the new guard is coming up, and they're going to keep switching around.
And who are the heavy favorites nowadays? Because we have teams like Counterlogic Gaming who have given Cloud9 their only loss of the season and Velocity their only win of the season. Yeah. So what's actually happening right now? Because all these teams are beating each other. If that's not parity right now in North America, I don't really know what is.
It was so cool to just come through and just start that first week. Because, you know, you compare again to the spring split, and it's like, man, some teams didn't get their first win for like 3 weeks. Whereas like the first day, everyone got their first win, and except for Cloud9, everyone got their first loss as well. And so seeing the level of competition rise in North America in general, having so many good top teams competing, it helps the teams practice against each other because there's so many good partners out there. There's so many strategies to look at, so many champions to look at, and styles to learn from or emulate or counter.
And especially for Team Coast now, all of them have graduated high school. So no more distractions from that. Zion Spartan missed a game a day during Super Week. Turned out to only be 1 game, as they had Jinte actually coming back and subbing in for them. So GGU, not GGU, Team Coast, former GGU, now Team Coast, is on a path to really good things, because even though they've pulled even now, the paths have to like intersect or change or collide with each other if we don't want Coast just coasting past Dignitas in the standings, because really Dignitas has got to pick it back up like they did early in the first split.
Well, let's see if they can pick it up here. Champion Select has begun, and the game is afoot. Zach just being dropped away from Crumbs. There's been a lot, I feel like a lot of respect bans against the junglers more and more this split so far.
I also think that has something to do with the unfamiliarity with the jungle changes. There's a lot of stuff that people have seen a couple times be really successful, and they don't want to risk it. So everyone knows, obviously, Nunu can be a crazy counter jungle. And there is an incredibly large impact of buff steals early on in the game. So that's why we're banning out Nunu. But the rest of it, I can't really be too sure about.
All right, we'll see what they end up doing in the game. Of course, Zion Spartan on Coast. We talk about some of the strategies being top laner will carry us. They're giving him a big playmaker there, Zion Spartan on Jace.
And I guess because of the added importance on the jungle bans, he got the Jace, man.
Yeah.
Zion Spartan was the guy who pulled all the Jace ban trends starting in North America.
That's true.
He was dominating with it near the end of the spring split. And now we're 6 or 7 weeks later. Everybody knows about Jace at this point, and he still gets it because of the jungle changes, in my opinion.
And it's fun to watch which guys excel at and which don't. Nian, right, new to the top lane and just completely dominating on that. Maybe some familiarity there being a ranged AD champion, but the guys who excel on Jace make it look easy. They hit the skill shots, they dunk people down, and then they 1v2 at the end of the game. But of course, Dignitas have locked in their own champions here. A lot of melee kind of jump in on you. They got Lee Sin and Zed in there for some scrapping.
That's already a pretty big assassin line, and I wonder if Coast is going to try to bring any disengage or cannon-like things to be able to stop dives coming through, because he's been picked up tons of impact last week in the 3.7 patch play, along with Kha'Zix. Kha'Zix, the reason we're not seeing him that much is he was radically changed in the last patch, and I think a lot of people haven't been able to catch up on that. If you haven't known about it, go read the 3.8 patch notes. It's what you guys have been playing on live for quite a while, but that's why Kha'Zix isn't so dominating picked or banned thus far.
We'll see if people end up bringing that back in there as well and saying, you know, actually, yeah, he's just like we remember. We're happy to go for this one. But no stranger to seeing some familiar picks here. The jungle, I'm an assumed jungle, at least it is Nintendo after all. Shifter on the Ezreal. These guys are picking up champions that we've seen quite a bit before.
Yeah. I'm a Cutie Pie going back on Draven is a return to dominance if he's hoping for, because he was so good on Draven early in the spring split. And the Thresh from Patoy is something that we actually haven't been seeing getting through to him that often. Oftentimes, Patoy would go for supports like Zyra or even Alistar, but this time he does have the Thresh play going in, and I like this for Dignitas. While it's very aggressive, it's another one of those kind of like the comp Curse picked, but not as tanky when they dive in, but a very much win the lane composition, which is what Dignitas has done in the past when they win games.
And that's actually what they'd always said, really, back in the playoffs even, in the late end of the spring split was, don't die in the first 2-3 minutes, don't die before level 3, and then we're fine. We'll carry the game. Our mid game is strong. We're going to be good. So they're like, laning phase, laning phase, laning phase. Seriously, just don't die to the frickin' Thresh in lane.
Yes, and that is exactly what Dignitas is trying to do with that composition. I wonder what Coast is going to do to counter, because they already have the Ezreal, who's pretty good at shifting out of hooks. They have hooks of their own, which could potentially punish Daydreaming going with his trademark Blitzcrank that he's actually kind of known for when he was signed by Team Coast.
Those very first games,
Yeah, I like these team comps, especially the TF. Wow.
Ooh, so Skara back here on Twisted Fate. I remember some people clowned on him for a subpar performance during the playoffs, but he's back here with a vengeance saying, no, I've got this. He's going to bring the TF out, and it's funny because we see him banned sometimes, and sometimes he's just completely through. Scar's going to get him for the 10th pick here.
And I really liked the mind game Dignitas played, as long as Kiwi Kid is playing solid on Zed here, because in the past for Dignitas, if there's been a Zed pick, it has been Skara on Zed. So for all purposes, Coast was saying, all right, guys, let's prepare for the Zed from Skara. Maybe he's going to go bot lane, but let's get ready for this. We're going to lane Jace against him. Everything's going to be awesome. And then no. Now you have Rumble having to deal with Zed. It's a totally different ballgame.
You've had a similar thing for Coast, though, where they had that first pick Jace. Like, man, Zion's Jace is really good. And they waited for till the last second to pick up Rumble. Of course, didn't bait any solo lane picks from Dignitas till the end, but they were like, yeah, we got a Zion Spartan Jace here. He's really good at the champion. You should be aware of that.
These sneaky teams. All the picks nowadays for the solo lanes have actually kind of morphed, especially if we're going to be seeing, what I think we're going to be seeing is more AD carrying supports in the mid lane. The solo lane picks are not nearly as much about top lane and mid lane as they are about side lane or solo lane.
Yeah.
And they are completely hot swappable based on where they're going. The only things that really key you off on where they're going is knowing the player and the scouting. So in this situation, it's much like, I don't think Kiwi Kid plays Zed. That means Skara must be playing Zed. And that's probably why it was, in my opinion, fooling to Coast.
Yeah, it's been one of the interesting things about the Season 3 is that they've been just sort of like, we're just solo laners, we'll go wherever we want. Of course, the game is afoot. We'll see where these guys all end up going. Guys, we're here in the 4th game of Week 2. Dignitas spawning in the top right, Coast spawning in the bottom left. We'll see where these guys end up going. You talked about, the scouting of the players and where they tend to go. I feel like Skara goes bottom for Dignitas like 90% of their games.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing some stats somewhere, totally unverified.
Yeah, sure.
But I think Dignitas does more lane swapping versus where the two-man lane goes mid more than other teams. So they'll send Cutie-Pie and Patoy mid more than most other teams would, and that's why Skara spends so much time in the side lanes.
All right, now a lot of invading coming in from Coast, though, putting the word down on the race. Of course, that was pinged out. Dignitas doing the same. For what it's worth, though, no one from Coast saw Patoy put that ward down. Potentially a little bit of vision advantage. Patoy putting a lot of wards down. Got one on the double golems, got one on the lizard camp as well.
Yeah, they're really wanting some control over that red buff. And I'm thinking Dignitas is going to be running Thresh in the mid lane so that Patoy can help with invades down on the red side of the jungle. I don't know where Nintendo's X is going to start. This could be a very interesting level 1 by Dignitas. I think they have something planned. Remember, Dig was the team that did a double red buff and blue buff steal against Cloud9 in Week 1, so they are very willing to make aggressive buff steal plays at level 1.
And they just made a play right here to sweep out some of the vision on their Wraith camp, which really means there's only 2 wards now on the map total for Coast, and they're both from the top side. If Dig does go to that lizard side enemy jungle, that will be in the darkness. Nintendo and Mashme lurking around by their own lizard buff, and of course they're in full view of that Dignitas lineup.
But just out of random luck or maybe prediction, if Coast just takes this red while Crumbs is taking his red, this essentially invalidates the Dignitas ward. So even though Dignitas will know where Nintendo X is going and know the general direction of where the AD carry and support are going, it doesn't enable any counter jungling from Crumbs. It doesn't really give any immediate advantages to Dignitas.
No, so Dignitas going to make their own moves to start the game out. They actually kind of were the first ones to make a choice here. They've already got QtPie there in the bottom lane. They've already got Scar there in mid, and Coast is allowed to actually respond to them and put their own people where they want. It's going to be Mash Me and Daydreaming holding up that mid lane. A default shifter versus Scar matchup up top. That's
common stuff.
Wait, Kiwi Kid's on TF. Am I just that dumb that I didn't notice that before?
I think we both missed this entirely, Freak.
Scar was on Zed. Jet, we got it.
We got it. Good job, man. Predictors of everything, intentional or not. So this is neat. I wonder how Kiwi Kid's going to deal with this, because this is a total disregard for mid lane, top lane disparity. Kiwi Kid, he learned top lane for the spring split. Now he's learning TF. Go Kiwi.
All right, Kiwi Kid doing good stuff right there. Zion Spartan, though, QtPie just shows aggression, makes him just back the heck out. And, of course, here comes Crumbs as well on Lee Sin. So the 3-man dive there on the bottom turret has shown up. Zion Spartan has to be very, very afraid of this.
Yeah, this is just another example of trying to get down for the bottom lane. This is what we saw Curse versus Vulcan, but at that point, we didn't see Nintendo Dex actually coming to counter. This is actually very standard play here, as long as no one gets caught out.
Pull the damage up on Zion Spartan. QtPie almost went for more there. Nintendo makes him stop, saying, hey, dude, back out. I'm a spider, and I can scare Reginald. I can scare you. Get off my turf. So the 3-on-2, though, still here in this bottom turret. Dignitas not wanting to give this one up.
Yeah, Dignitas wants to keep that pressure off because they got so much damage onto Zion Spartan, but Zion Spartan is ticking down with those health potions, so they're trying to make something happen here, and I actually think Coast is sending even more support bottom lane to try to stop this from happening.
Yeah, Daydream was lurking around in the shadows, but he realized that he couldn't see Crumbs anymore, had to back out in fear of 1v1ing a Lee Sin. However, the rest of Dignitas are starting to back out of this one a little bit. They're kind of giving Zion Spartan room to breathe finally.
So I feel like Coast survived that fairly well. They didn't take much damage from that turret. Some of that has to do with the not tremendous wave clear of the Draven Thresh Lee Sin, so the windows they had actually at the turret to get damage down were rather small, plus there was a lot of potential threat and good wave clear coming out from Coast.
So let's compare the turret health then, because we talked about wave clear and the threat on the turret. So the middle turret for Dignitas is down to half, but so is actually that bottom turret for Coast. So minion kills what they are. Of course, you can compare Zion Spartan to Kiwi Kid and see a bit of an advantage for Dignitas, but turrets as well are actually quite equal here. So the 3-on-2 managed to be pretty much a wash. Attempted hook there by Daydream and nearly stops out the Lee Sin, but so far the lane matchups have made the game pretty equal.
Exactly, and I want to see if Coast uses this 2v1 mid for their advantage, and if they start doing jungle invades with it. Just because that's the whole reason that Daydream said he was picking Blitzcrank is for increased buff control. Maybe that'll happen a little bit later, or because he just wants to roam the map right now, because if he's a mid lane Blitzcrank and there's no pressure on him in a 2v1, he gets to go wherever he wants, as Nintendo and Daydreamin are coming bot for QtPie and Patoy.
And I don't think they really got spotted, so here comes a jump in. QtPie's gonna get the lantern, the team will turn around. Oh, no! Oh my god, Daydreamin, you are amazing, and QtPie is now trying to run, but they might have the damage they need. Ignite is on. No, QtPie survives. A legit hook, though.
That was amazing. He had to calculate the speed of the hook when he saw it, and he pulled him mid-lantern instead of actually at his endpoint, but because QtPie got enough distance from the lantern and still had his flash, didn't even get a kill out of it. He totally deserved it, though.
Stay in school, kids. Math works out and makes you play League of Legends better. He knew the trajectory and the vectors and the angle, did all the math. He didn't need Heimerdinger to do it. Picking that one up. Of course, not a kill, but still my top play of the game so far. Let's take a look at the rest of this map, though. Mash Me and Daydreamin with the Fists of Fury still trying to push down this mid lane, but that turret's it's kind of stopped taking damage here. Kiwi Kid's doing a very good job of holding that lane up in a 1v2.
Once Twisted Fate gets a couple of levels, those wild cards clear the wave like crazy. It's about 180 damage right now for Kiwi Kid on a about 6-second cooldown, so he can throw multiple wild cards per wave, always locking blue cards and then just trying to clear it out. It's not the easiest wave for Don't Mash Me and Daydreamin to push.
Yeah, they're getting damage on the turret, but just so slowly. You compare to some of the games we've seen before in the tournament, or in the league in general, where we see turrets die by like 3 or 4 minutes. Just jungler shows up, turret falls over, move on, landing phase continues. And we're 6.5, and these guys are still standing despite being in lopsided lanes. However, I do want to point out some of the adaptations these players have been doing. So Kiwi Kid is staying and wave clearing. Zion Spartan has been going back and taking his double golems over and over.
That's really interesting, actually, because he's only been able to do that since he's had so much jungle support. And Zion Spartan's been able to take a couple of those double golems, not falling too far behind, but if you look at the minion kills, he is, because like Skara and Kiwi Kid overall are out farming Zion Spartan.
And that is just a bad thing when you are Zion Spartan. You tend to kind of carry the team. That's one of the sort of core strategies of Coast is in Zion we trust. However, that mid lane has worked out. Nintendude shows up to support his team. Turret goes down. Built a small gold lead for Coast. Of course, TF passive helping Dignitas a little bit and keeping their gold pretty high.
And this opens up more roam potential for Coast, because again, Daydream and Nintendude could tag team down through this ward. This time Amakudipe doesn't have flash, and Patoy hasn't made much distance yet. I think he's going to try to get away with that flash, as he does. Yeah,
good cocoon, good flash as well. Everyone playing that one pretty much properly. And of course, that team showing up does let Zion Spartan's turret survive. So we talked about this a little bit in the Vulcan versus Curse game, where the laning matchups and the movements they made build themselves advantages from turrets and things like that. Well, here, Coast, sacrificing their blue buff maybe, but have saved the turret for it.
Yeah, but at least they got the mid lane turret down, which is, I think, the most important thing for them. After that, they were just trying to save their other turret, and I think it was more of a turret war than a, hey man, we need to protect our blue buff. Because we look at their team comp, and yes, Shifter will be good with the blue buff, but he still does have that tier. And the blue isn't hugely impactful for a Jace until later in the game.
Yeah, I like how impressively both teams actually did. Oh wow, the flash away from the cocoon. Crumbs was very afraid of getting jumped on by those guys. Had to back away from that one. Of course, the knockback from Jace could have secured his fate. Zion Spartan level 6, so is QtPie. So the equalizer was actually used last wave to clear out, but Zion has to sit in the wave because he's got to keep his turret alive here.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that Coast hasn't put more down bottom, but that's because they're going for kills mid on Kiwi.
Daydreamin should have his stuff up. There's the flash. We've seen Dignitas burn 3 flashes in a row now from the skill shots that are making people afraid. But speaking of skill shots, the hook lands on Zion Spartan. Down below half health, Lantern Shield is on, and they're still chasing him down. QtPie knows no fear, but says, okay, you flashed out of range. Ult goes off. Zion Spartan has a TF ult on top of him, and that is Kiwi Kid picking up first blood.
There we go. It's actually quite an accomplishment that Kiwi Kid made it down that far, since with his mid turret down, he had to be very sneaky about his positioning. Now he's actually trying to execute himself because he knew he went in so deep. Nice play by Kiwi Kid there.
Well dying, actually. A very, very good choice by him. So Kiwi, unfortunately, falls over for his troubles, but heck, I'll take 400 gold any day for a quick death. So we've got to now look at where we are in this game, because Dignitas have finally tied up that turret kill. They've gotten their first blood as well. And you look at that, Dignitas has their own lead here. The fans seem to be right. They've got an early lead, and they're doing well.
Now it's going to be about whether or not they can keep their lane pressure up, because we know they picked kind of to win these lanes. Amakudipe's farming well. Surprisingly, Kiwi Kid's kept up quite well, considering he was in an almost unhelped 1v2 this entire time. And then Skara versus Jace is something we unfortunately never get to watch in LCS games, because the top lane matchup is usually so isolated. We just kind of look up there and be like, oh yeah, that's going even right there. And that's exactly what Skara and Shifter have been doing up there. It'll be about what happens when Skara and Shifter join the fight.
So let's see what kind of impact they can have. Of course, the ultimate is back available here for Rumble. The blue buff getting taken as well by Dignitas. Kiwi Kid getting himself a blue buff. I feel like it's a foreign concept for a top laner. I get blue buffs? Oh my gosh, this is so nice. I have cooldown reduction.
So happy about that one. And Twisted Fate lost his cooldown reduction in patch 3.7, actually. He no longer gets CDR just for leveling up his E, which is actually going to make the blue buff a lot more important for Kiwi Kid. 75 seconds left on his Twisted Fate ultimate, as you can see in the bottom left corner there. And that will most likely be used in conjunction with a dragon play if Dignitas wants to make a move down there.
So speaking of dragon plays, then, you know, the top laner have been sitting there for a long time. When do they say, yeah, guys, we should group with the team and take objectives versus let's stay top lane for a while?
I think they're just going to stay top lane for a while, because there's not enough overall turrets down in the game, and there's actually so much importance in getting ahead in this turret race that as soon as a top laner leaves, I feel like the other team will kind of turtle out a little bit and just let the top turret, the top turret will just get taken. Both Zed and Jace push turrets very quickly, and they're just going to stay away from that game. I feel like they're going to let the rest of the map play 4v4.
Hook lands on Daydream, and so much burst damage comes across. Day's going to fall down, but here comes a counter engage from Nintendude. Puts some pain on a Patoy, has to repel up in the air, but he's about to get gold carded by a Kiwi. No, actually, sorry, he goes to the Wraith camp down below. He's safe right there. But a 1-0, and now Dignitas, they're going to want to keep on moving forward. An Arcane Shift from Mashme. The rest of the team grouping back up, and here comes Scar from around the back. He's going to jump in. Don't Mash. He's going to fall the heck over. Nintendude forced to run away as well. The Draven Bleed might just take him down. It actually does. And here comes the jump back in. Kiwi gets going to take down by Shifter. Zion's going to come back. Of course, has burned the equalizer 2 for 2 so far. Patoy getting lit on fire. Another kill picked up.
So everything really started when Patoy landed the hook, and got the kill onto Daydreamin', but Dignitas burned a lot to just get the kill on a support. They still had to fight in the tower, and then when they dove, it allowed Coast a tremendous counterattack. Turret to lane, and the spot in between is where the equalizer was actually placed by Zion Spartan, and it landed so well on a Dignitas that it pretty much won them that fight and gave them that Dragon before Kiwi Kid's Twisted Fate ultimate could be used to control it.
So, great setup here of Coast picking up the kills at the end of that fight, gives them the numbers advantage. That Dragon is theirs. The Destiny was actually used, but they might just find an opening. The hook!
Nice hook!
At the spawn on Kiwi Kid. This is not good. The True Shot Barrage will not land, but Zion Spartan gets a free kill. Scar will turn that one back, though. 1 for 1.
I could be wrong here. Unless was Kiwi Kid porting? You should be able to tell me this. I'm wrong on this. When you port into a Fog of War, I should definitely know this. Do you get to see the port?
Yes.
Okay, that's how he hooked him there.
Yeah.
I was like,
you do know when TF shows up.
Yeah,
Same as when you teleport to a ward.
That should be the way it works.
Yes.
And that's exactly why Daydream was able to hook him in. A bit of an ill-advised teleport from Kiwi Kid in there, because Dignitas didn't have the support able to come after him. Really, I guess, giving up the Dragon and the kill, but still somehow having a goal lead at the end of it.
So Dignitas, that TF pass is definitely helping a little bit. Ooh, nice attempt there on Nintendo. He has to repel into the air. Was afraid for his life. And you know, games like this are so fun to watch, though, because you've seen basically a lot of really cool individual plays pretty much the entire time through, right? Just stupidly good clutch hooks from Daydreamin', flash dodges the whole way through. Pretty much everyone has been dodging skill shots that otherwise would have landed onto them, and just a lot of great plays back and forth. The team fights are hectic, too. It's one of the games you really like to watch at League of Legends.
Yeah, this is a very close game, as these guys had a very close game last week as well. Yeah. Maybe we'll get another base race. Who knows? Right now, because Dignitas is trying to crush these lanes. They're trying to put the pressure on, and it's just a matter of if they can get there.
Grims is just going to knock Shifter into the wall, and the burst comes across. Goodbye, Shifter. Can't do enough damage. True Shot Barrage almost makes Crumbs regret that decision, but he's going to be just fine. The wave clear comes out. Great pickup there for Dignitas.
Yeah, that was smart by Crumbs to tank the turret right off the bat, since he's rushed that Spirit of the Ancient Golem, such a beefy tank item. All the Lee Sins today have been rushing that item, as opposed to the Aegis or the Locket of the Iron Solar we saw out of a lot of the other ones.
Oh, Kiwi Kid's going to look for a little bit of pain against Zion. Spartan gets the stun inside of the turret range, and Zion, with just one turret shot to left, gets out of range. The 1v1 fight going in Coast's favor.
And this game is getting a little hard to keep track of. These guys are fighting everywhere, from top to bottom. 2v1 tower dives or 1v1 tower dives, but what we do know is Zion Spartan has consistently performed for Team Coast there, as he does with that kill on Kiwi Kid.
Yeah, he was the guy that was put into the junk lane. He was the guy who was getting zoned out, had to have Nintendo defend him, and was sitting there with, aside from the supports, the lowest minion kill score in the game, and is like, 4-2-1, what's up?
He got a lot of power out of that mid lane fight.
Yeah.
When they got the Dragon afterwards, and then killed the teleporting in Kiwi Kid. That is what's really put him back in this game. He's at 5,000 gold right now. Zion Spartan actually has, only by a small margin, but the most gold of anyone on his team. The only person in the game who has more gold is Skara, who's been able to farm as well as pick up some kills in what was a 1v1 lane.
So great job then. Zion Spartan keeping his team afloat. Said that might have been one of the tactics that Coast would employ, and so far it is actually working. Zion has actually been given the top lane to farm out, and it's fun to watch which players teams tend to focus on. For example, COG is like, double if you get the free lane farm, you're the one who goes out and carries all the gold on our team. Right here, they're actually putting a lot of effort onto Zion Spartan to let him catch back up in these solo lanes.
It's really starting to come in for Dignitas, which is surprising, considering Dignitas couldn't control the Dragon, and I guess the fight in mid was a lot more even than we realized, but then afterwards, even when Kiwi Kid died, like, none of this actually seems to be hurting Dignitas too much, because they're still able to keep Coast pushed on their back foot. They're going for turret number 3, and if they get this, Dignitas might try to take more control of the game.
Certainly, they might have control of it. Nintendo's going to look for a counter gank here in this left-hand side lane, though, but it's going to be a 4 versus 2. Dignitas, they do make the move. They do get control of that turret. That's taken down. Another advantage for these guys.
And it was while everyone on Coast was actually back in base, so there was no lanes that Coast could be pushing to punish Dignitas for investing so much in this top lane. Now they're trying to fight him off.
They're looking for the re-engage. The TFL comes by as well. Kiwi Kid trying to make sure he can defend his team in the 5-on-5. True Shot Barrage does whiff. The rest of Dignitas gets out of that one for free.
It's a really nice split they did as the Ezreal kind of flew up the top through them. Rumble ult is used for pretty much nothing. Kiwi Kid did ult to come in. I guess you could argue that that was traded. And now it's a matter of if Coast tries to do anything, knowing that since Dignitas just had 5 top it tells them where Dignitas may be going. They expect Dignitas went back to base right now, but Dignitas could be laying in wait for a kill.
And there goes Nintendo getting kicked in the air. Oh, he repels back up though. He's gonna try to get back down, but this is not a good numbers fight here. 5 versus 4, and the initiation is on. Nintendo's trying to run away. The pull in onto Zion Spartan. He's not going anywhere, but he finds some damage back on Ascara, forcing him away. And in the meantime, Shifter has been pushing the mid lane.
And that's one of the punishments you get if you're Dignitas for putting 5 people in a top lane rush. When you don't know where everyone is, Shifter getting this, I think Dignitas wanted a lot more out of that fight. I actually thought they were going to get a lot more because Patoy landed an awesome flash box that triggered on 2, and they just weren't able to chase it down. So after all of that sneakiness and what was pretty much successful sneakiness, I think Coast came out on top in that engagement.
Daydream spots QtPie in a ward, though. They're still looking for a little bit of blood here. The problem is the numbers, I think, are in Dignitas' favor. Kiwi Kid waiting in the background, and actually it's just QtPie and Patoy saving this turret up. That could have been another fight. Daydream was looking for it.
So we're now at 3 turrets to 2.
Yeah.
It's still only 1.7 thousand gold. There was a Lichbane rushed onto Kiwi Kid, which tells me they're trying to get this turret game going. Obviously, some Twisted Fates go for Lichbane for like a little bit faster gank and the movement speed, but honestly, it is about the turret pushing here for Dignitas. I think they're going to be split pushing and trying to almost choke out Coast. They just need to get more power going first because Coast is fighting back really well.
Yeah, the difference in strategy though feels like a bit of a new look for Dignitas. Though I mean, we know we talked about their old end game being the tri-lane split push, where they got ahead early and were like, just sit in your lanes, farm it up, and we'll just start getting ahead in our gold and be fine. But the heavy emphasis on actual objective control though is a little bit different.
It's definitely a bit of a change for these guys. The games are very close for them. I really want to see if Dignitas can get I'm a Cutie Pie going at all. If we kind of saw in the Curse game that if Draven can't start running over people, then he might not necessarily have a place. But I'm a Cutie Pie is a much more experienced Draven player, and I think he should know how to handle it. I want to see if Don't Mash Me can keep him at a distance later on in this game.
Draven running at you with crazy spinning axes might just be a little bit scary. So, Coast looking for what their openings are. They've been, as you say, kind of on the back foot a little bit this one. Dignitas have been making the openings. 3, actually, for what it's worth, the split push that Shifter managed to pull through a little while ago did make the turret lead 3-3, but here comes Dragon, here comes Dignitas' next move on the map.
Yeah, and this could be because they saw Shifter trying to push out that really shoved minion wave over in the bottom, and I believe Crumb should just get that, but he gets pulled afterwards by Daydreaming.
Oh, it just jumps right back across, though. The cocoon could not quite land from Nintendo, so they get away from this one safely. Daydreaming this time around not getting the Blitzcrank rocket grab steal, but nice attempt anyway. Dig still. They pick up an objective.
Yeah, so good control by them. It's what they've been able to continue doing throughout pretty much this entire game. And even though Coast has been counterplaying them very well, I see Dignitas coming up. It's so crazy that we see a game that's 3 turrets to 3 because the whole map is open. And you can see that spread right now as Coast is trying to push up mid lane. Blowing ults, actually, Dignitas is to clear the wave.
Attempted rocket grab there as well. So it's Zion Spartan saying, we know we can't shove in your base too very easily. We do need to send someone back to defend that Skara split push because it's something we're worried about. So it's this crazy game of like aggression in different parts of the map. They're playing the whole playing field really aggressively, every one of these teams.
I want to see if Skara can take out Zion Spartan here because Zion Spartan has not went for any kind of Seeker's Arm Guard item or any kind of real Zed defense aside from that one cloth armor. So if Scar could get a jump on him, he could really make a play down there since he's completely isolated while everyone else is playing 4v4.
So let's see where Scar ends up going with this one. He's going to steal the red buff away, and of course Zion Spartan is not going to sniff him out. That duel, I feel like that duel is going to be better for Scar in general. The hook comes across, only lands onto a minion though. Cutie Pie was stunned. Could have maybe waited for that one around here. Here we go, the 4v4 still looking like it in the mid lane. Dignitas the one to look for moves. There's going to jump out Zion Spartan. The stun's going to come across. I don't think that Rumble is going anywhere. Great move there by Dig. They just find another opening.
And I really like how they punished Nintendo Dex and Daydreamin' for the missed opportunity there, because when Coast put themselves into Dignitas' red jungle, they gave Dignitas, specifically Kiwi Kid, enough distance so that he would be in ultimate range of Zion Spartan to pull off that kill. Map movement at its greatest.
Great capitalization there, knowing what the opponents could do and making your own choices. That's really what we like to see in these top teams, where they play to make things happen. They play to jump in there, find the openings and force things down to their opponents, make sure they don't miss any opportunities here. So Coast, they've got the respawn. Zion Spartan is back on the map, but of course Skara is just still pushing that bottom lane. We talked about him a while ago, how he had the most gold in the game, and he's still got that title. 8,900, now 9,000 gold on him. No one in the game even has 8,000 gold. Skara is by far the most massive champion here.
And I wonder if Dignitas is going to continue split pushing with him, or if they're going to try to find some fights with him, because if you remove Scar from the equation, and assuming Zion Spartan can somehow fight Scar in that side lane, that 3,000 gold advantage by Dignitas, since, as you said, Scar is 2,000 gold ahead of everyone on Coast, in the 4v4 sense, Coast will only be 1,000 gold down.
Yeah.
And the fight could actually be very close. So I think that unless Scar can kill in 1v1 situations, Dignitas has to find ways to either do more Twisted Fate ganks or fight 5v5.
So we'll see what they do with this one, because Scar is to run into that bottom lane, and heck, maybe they do a Vulcan where they're just like, incremental advantage, incremental advantage, incremental advantage. 35 minutes in, all right, we'll kill your Nexus. See what the game plan is for these Dignitas boys, because Coast right here are just trying to hold on and look for their openings. They've tossed out hooks, they've tossed out cocoons. They haven't necessarily always landed them. Really, they've looked to make plays. They haven't found the plays.
Exactly, and they found a couple.
They look a couple,
but they couldn't execute. They're really hoping Daydreaming can get a hook onto I'm a Cutie Pie at some point, or Kiwi Kid. Either one of those would work for them. If they get that, they can make a power play off of Scar not being there. But as long as Dignitas continues to avoid those hooks, as long as they keep their wards up and just kind of run into smart places, they're going to be fine.
Well, Coast have a chance for a small 5v3 right here. They just sent Cutie Pie back. He's going to go for it right. Ooh, Crumbs hops to a ward and forced everyone to run the heck back. Nearly getting that fight there for Coast. And Zion Spartan, you talk about the 1v1 potential. Scar, I think, is going to get this one. Oh my gosh, just gets kills.
And this is huge for Dignitas, because now Coast has another man just sucked down towards them, as well as shoving minion waves that Ezreal just tried to burn down bottom lane. Scar's going to have pressure on that bottom turret. Dignitas is going to push out mid and bottom. They're doing the tri-lane push.
There we go, that tri-lane push. Kiwi Kid's up in the top lane. He's been there a lot. The flash up got a Cutie Pie, though. There comes the Lantern, pulls him to the side, and that is a great save by Patoy. And, of course, Scar in the bottom lane. This turret is his.
Dignitas is ready for it. That was the counter pull. He got pulled in and then just rolled the Lantern back out. That continues Dignitas's turret assault here. Really well done. The one play there gives them 2 turrets.
Oh my gosh, and Kiwi Kid, of course, sorry, Cutie Pie, just still here at this mid lane. The tri-push, of course, continuing. And Dignitas have just continually made such great moves here. Though Steel on blue looks to be coming up as well. Crumb's gonna make that one happen. Cutie Pie is alone and doesn't even care.
Well, he's already survived a hook.
Yeah.
He can survive another one. Cutie Pie lives dangerously as he's going for that last Whisper right now. 8,000 gold on him to 7,700 of Don't Mash Me. And Don't Mash Me's actually went for the slow progression Blue Ezreal build, where he starts with the Bloodthirster instead of the Spirit of the Lizard Elder. You add about 1,000 gold to that build before you hit the point where you really want with the Iceborne Gauntlets and the Mirror Mana, plus the last Whisper. And since Coast isn't ahead of Dignitas, they're actually 6,000 gold behind them.
Oh gosh.
It's going to be a while.
Yeah, it is. So it's Coast just playing that waiting game. Now, at least thankfully for them, they've got something to fall back on eventually when they get there. They've still got items to go for and scalings to reach, but Dignitas have just not really allowed this game to go to them. They've made these moves. They've looked for the openings. And Twisted Fate has been played well, I would say, by Kiwi Kid. We didn't know how it was going to go, but he's found openings repeatedly. He's got death, but one of them is execute, and one's going to be a kick out on Daydreamin'.
And there's Crumbs' insect play. I think they're going to be able to get Daydreamin' down.
Yep, good job there. Crumbs and co making that one happen. So a lot of playmakers here for Dignitas. Scar's winning duels, Kiwi Kid's jumping in with his Twisted Fate ultimates, and Crumbs is picking people out by himself.
And here's the question, how does Dignitas close games? Because this game was close about 5 or 6 minutes ago, so they have found a little bit of a formula here that's working out quite well. Let's see if they do something here.
Another hook on an Nintendo. The box comes out as well. Patoy actually has to run away from that one. Took a lot of poke at the start. Forced to disengage. This turret is still losing health. Cutie Pie lurking around the sides. Shock Blast does some damage here, but so far, so good. Dignitas has another wave. They might stay.
Does look like Dignitas should get back to the split push. They have enough turrets down already, 5-3, and Skara has shown enough scariness in the bottom lane that Coast pretty much has to send 2 people for him at all times. It gives the rest of Dignitas a lot of freedom to build up their lead.
And you're going to see this lead continue to grow because they're looking for the dragon right here. Cutie Pie throwing spinning axes as it. Another 1,000 gold picked up for Dignitas, putting them now 7,500 gold up. They keep finding things to do well. They keep finding objectives to grab, kills to take, and plays to make. And Dig are looking very much on form this day.
And it looks like Crumbs is going just super tank Lee Sin, which is not too surprising. That's what most Lee Sins have been doing. Decent farm number for him, 84, but a crazy farm number there for Skara. 250 at 26 minutes because he has lived in that bottom lane over and over. Scar's going to be there until Coast, I feel like, sends everyone for him. And at that point, the rest of Dignitas would be able to take a Baron. So Coast has to find an answer for Scar if they want to make anything happen in this game.
I'm not even sure they have a duelist that can take him on. I mean, you saw Zion Spartan was going towards the Zonius. Doesn't have it yet, to be fair, but he was getting one-shotted with some tankiness in his build. He certainly can't send Shifter. I don't think Contender Daydream can do it either. And sending Mashme, that scares me too. Even with a Glacial Shroud at Iceborne Gauntlet, I feel like it's still a bad matchup.
I think Mashme would be like their only hope, but I think it may be too late for them. What they're doing instead is they're saying, we're going to race Skara to our inhibitor turrets as they're forcing down in this middle turret. Let's see if they can get it before Dignitas counterattacks.
It is a 5v4. They get some initiative onto Crumbs. The damage output is there. They are trying to pop him down. The Lantern comes across. 1 for nothing. The flash is away from the hook, but they find Kiwi Kid as well. They found 2 kills. Cutie Pie taking pain, but he's going to find Zion Spartan. Look at the damage from those axes. We watch Scar in the bottom corner is taking down the inhibitor turret, but the inhibitor itself has been taken down by Coast.
Yeah, and I feel like Coast is trying to go for more here, but Scar is on his way back. I don't think Coast can do this one.
They're running out of minions, but that turret is running out of health, down below half HP. Lantern comes across, but Toy wants something to happen, and Cutie Pie doesn't want to click the Lantern because Cutie Pie does not care. He's going to kill minions instead. Skara just might find an opening, though.
I feel like that was one of those scary lanterns to ride because you don't really know where it's going. I actually think it was the right call of Cutie Pie not to click that lantern from Batoy because I think it could have led to the death of him.
Yeah.
But that was a really good play by Coast. They killed an inhibitor. Even though they lost their inhibitor turret, that was their answer for dealing with Scar. Now anytime Scar goes bottom lane, at least in the next recent future, there's going to be super minions pushing up the mid. Dignitas trying a really quick back play of themselves because they're running to Baron, knowing, especially with the TF ult, everyone on Coast is in their base.
So many fast moves back and forth. Baron down to half health, and Nintendo, we've seen him get so many steals, and they just jump onto him. They know to be afraid of that Elise. Kiwi Kid and Patoy making things happen. Misses the wild card, but he's been ignited. Nintendo forced to run away, but Baron goes down, 28-59. The hook on a Kiwi Kid. He's gonna fall. No, he's gonna Zonius first. He's not falling over. There's the poke coming down. They get that kill. Patoy is low. Can Coast go in for a 5v4 and take away some Baron buffs?
Coast wants to get more kills. Look at that awesome Rumble ult.
Just slowing Patoy down. Zion Spartan, perfect vector targeting. Volta dead on Patoy, 5v3.
And now the race might begin because it's actually a 5v2. There's Skara going bottom lane, and what we thought was going to get sent back is actually Don't Mash Me going back to fight him off.
Here we go. Mashme's going to see if he can actually fight Scar in the base. Of course, Scar has Baron buff. Secondary turret goes down. They actually send Nintendo back as well. So 3v2 is the push here. Blitzcrank plus Shifter plus Zion Spartan. Daydream spots Crumbs off on the side. No, actually the push will not continue because everyone is respawning back. Inhibitor goes down. The Nintendo wants to jump in onto Scar. Can he do the damage? There is a stun, and he's going to keep looking for some pain right here. The Ezreal's going to whiff. Nintendo's not in a good place. Flash in from Scar, and Scar picks another dual kill and still walks out with style.
He almost killed Don't Mash Me as well. So that is Skara just manning up. And at this point, it's Skara versus the world. He's so farmed on Zed and such a large part of Dignitas' lead. Scar's got 13,000 gold right now. That's 2.4k more than anyone else on his team. So when he's not there, which Coast is trying to capitalize on, Coast is trying to fight the rest of their team. But if they can't deal with Skara, even if they send 2, that's good for Scar. That's going to be a Dignitas win. This is a very interesting game now.
So we've got to now pay a lot of attention, of course, to where the minions go and how the minion waves are setting up, because we know that both these bases are wide open. I mean, last time these guys played, it was a base race, and it was the Nexus almost going down, a team getting ace, the other Nexus falling down. You've got a very similar situation brewing here, where the bases are like 30 seconds away from dying at any time.
And in this game, I'd say the gold lead is a little bit more towards Dignitas than it was last week in opening week for the LCS. But the situations that arise are very similar because anytime you're in split pushing scenarios, you're just inviting base races. No one in this game has teleports.
Yep.
So being able to defend against the base races or even creating super surprise ones are a little bit harder. But just because Scar is so often away from his team, we don't see that situation arise much. But now, Dignitas actually has 5 people in the mid lane for the first time in a real long time, and we could see a big fight here.
Of course, Super Minions are there. We'll see if the Coast team wants to ride that wave anywhere. Of course, they've got to remember that bottom lane is getting pushed in very, very strongly. It's down past their dead outer turret. Someone's got to respond to that eventually.
Yeah, and Dignitas still has Baron on 3 for another minute and a half, basically. Crumbs, Skara, and I'm a Cutie Pie are all sitting with the Baron buff. And Coast can only stay here for so long because if they don't go back, eventually that Super Minion stack in the bottom lane could take out a Nexus turret for Team Coast, so that's why Coast just has to back away.
That is not something Coast wants to lose. Of course, Blue Buff has respawned. The Twisted Fatal comes out, and they're going to jump in on towards Nintendude X. The free initiation onto Kiwi Kid, though he's going to Zonius and try to set up the fight here. The pull's going to land on the Cutie Pie, but Daydreamer gets chunked out. He's going to fall down. Cutie Pie picks up 1. The Lantern comes across. Kiwi Kid does survive that battle, but Scar's in the mix. The jump in on Nintendude. They're going to go re-engage for the battle here. Mashly dropped very, very low in health. Has to jump backwards. Nintendude's going to fall over. Double kill picked up there for I'm a Cutie Pie. And of course, Dignitas are not done. They find the slow into Crumbs, and that next turret you talked about has fallen down. Mashly's going to try to find 1, but Skara is godlike and takes him down. Only Shifter and Zion Spartan remain.
That was a really surprisingly good force by Kiwi Kid. You're like, what are you doing, man? Teleporting in with Twisted Fate, but it stalled Coast long enough. It allowed Dignitas to flank around. Even though I'm a Cutie Pie got hooked from the Abyss, Dignitas was still able to come on top of that game, and I think they try to end here.
They're going to look for it there. Shifter taking so much damage. Cutie Pie is on a killing spree. Zion Spartan finds 1, but he's going to find his doom as well. The respawn is here from Daydream, and the Nexus is falling down. This is almost certainly Dignitas' game to win. Nexus down to 1/3 health, 1/4. Cutie Pie still in the Nexus, but that's going to be GG, and it's relief on the Dignitas faces for pulling that game out.
They did it, man. They took out GGU. They won what was a close game. They then pulled ahead, but they did it their way. They used the split push of Zed combined with the global pressure of Kiwi Kid's surprise Twisted Fate pick to really punish Coast and just make the plays happen. That was Skara really changing his playstyle a little bit. Instead of just split pushing to come into team fights, he split pushed for his own sake, and it really worked.
It did absolutely. The dueling power, right? There was no one for Coast to respond to him, right? They tried Zion Spartan twice, and it failed both times. And the only recourse, as we saw, was, okay, 5 men. Let's dive in. Let's hope this works. Let's try to push your base out 5v4.
And I thought that was a really good adaptation by Team Coast. Like, Coast is a team that definitely never counts themselves out of a game, and they're always willing to make that desperation play. And that was another example of it being very close to working. But I think, you know, an extra week of experience for Dignitas, getting more involved in the split, learning GGU a little bit, and making the mid-season adaptations that we know Dignitas has been so good at, they were able to come out with a win here, and I guess they moved to 3-3 on the season.
They do move to 3-3. Of course, we also have a replay of that climactic fight. Jad, if you want to take it away, Kiwi Kid did some good work.
Yeah, and this was so surprising. Daydreamer was trying to hook in Kiwi Kid, but he found Draven instead, and that actually hurt them because I'm a Cutie Pie just killed the Draven that was there. The hook would have killed Kiwi Kid, but it wasn't enough for I'm a Cutie Pie. And Coast burned so much trying to kill Kiwi Kid, they had nothing left for the rest of the fight. See the big clump that Dignitas had there when they gave the double kill to I'm a Cutie Pie? If the equalizer was there, I think Coast would have won that fight. But because Kiwi Kid presented himself as such a big target at the start of that fight, it allowed Dignitas to roll through the rest of them and chase him down.
So great stuff right there. The chasing power, so strong from Dignitas. Of course, an amazing play by them. It seems they finally found some footing here. Again, as you said, 3-3 on the season. Now, coming up, guys, we're going to be joined by Dignitas' I'm a Cutie Pie and Patoy. Then we'll break down all the action and update the standings after today's games. Week 2 of the North American LCS Summer Split will continue right after this.